Alright, y'all. I've never done this before, but I work on my car quite often. I work on cars quite often, and I may not be a real experienced mechanic, but I'm more or less a backyard mechanic. I realize that there are no videos out there showing how to get the exhaust manifold off of the AVH 2.0 liter engine on a 2003 Golf. It's not a TDI, nothing like that, just a GL. So I'm going to get right into this, and maybe this will help other folks down the road. Alright, so we are looking to get the exhaust manifold out because we need to work on the cat pipe. The cat pipe attaches to a flange that's on the back side of the exhaust manifold, and when I tried to remove it, the bolts were fused and there was absolutely nothing I could do but bring them off. So yeah, we're gonna work on getting to the exhaust manifold. And first things first, we're gonna want to remove this top of the air filter box, and you can see I already removed this clamp, and we're gonna take this off right here, off the air pump, and just kind of squeeze these two tabs together, and it releases. And get these two Phillips screws. We're gonna have to loosen up. They don't fall out at all. They kind of stay inside the frame of the box here. And I'm not gonna remove the map sensor if I don't have to. So kind of unclip it from this little connector down here. It's pretty simple. You just lift up the tab on the back and it'll release. Yeah, and I'll be back after I get that done. Alright, so we have gotten the air filter box top off, and I just kind of set it aside. I didn't disconnect the wire here for the map sensor. I just kind of left that in. I didn't feel like taking it off right now, so got that out of the way. We're going to start removing this. I already got the clamp moved out of the way here. Take this off, and take this off. Just kind of slides off. Now we're going to unhook all these lines and get these out of the way, just so we can get this moved out of the way as best as possible. And I did this clamp, going to slide this off, just slide this part off, and that should allow us enough room to be able to access the other things on the other lines that are connected. The hose down here, which we're going to take this off. We're going to take this hose off, and we got to disconnect this air pump hose down here, which comes out of this little clamp right here. I don't know if you can kind of see it. I'll move this out of the way so you can see a little better. There is a clip down here that kind of just push that down, and this will pop open, and we're going to slide that out and disconnect it from the air pump up here. And all you do is, there's a little tab right here, and on the back side where my other finger is, just squeeze them together and it'll release. And then it's about the same back there. It might be a little bit harder to get it off. That seal might have fused a little bit better, but it'll still come off. Okay, so now that we have the intake tube off here and the air box, or the air filter box, whatever you want to call it, we have the top off of that. We have the tube here off, and we also have these connections off and loosened up. Now you want to move over here, and we're going to take off this one. This clamp actually goes up here, and let's just take that off, and we're going to take this off back here. This clamp goes over here, back behind, just to get this all out of the way. This tube actually runs along here, and then there's another little clamp here that holds it. I don't know if my camera will focus here, but it kind of pops onto this other tube, So make sure we take that off. And over here, this kind of just plugs into here. We're going to take that off. And then just kind of set it up out of your way over here. We're also going to take the clamp off of here. It goes up here, and this will slide right off. Kind of get that bent up out of your way. And down here, there's another tube. We're going to take the clamp off from over there. Back it up, and also pull that off and get that one out of the way. To be able to move this thing, at least without breaking anything, you're also going to want to move this clamp back a little bit to slide this off there to get this all freed up and out of the way. And don't forget your electrical connector over here. We have to pop this off. Just need a flathead screwdriver stick in there and kind of push back on it, and it releases the tab. And pull that off and get it up out of the way. Okay, when removing the air intake manifold, there are 5mm Allen head bolts that you have to get, and there is 1, 2, 3, and then down in here, I don't know if you can see that down there or not, kind of hard to see, but there's one in there, and there's one in there, and you can kind of see that one down in there. It's a little hard to see it, but I'll get you a better shot a bit later. See, there's one on that side, and it's just like that on the other side. And then you just stick a 5mm Allen wrench in here, and when you go to loosen it, just put some type of socket or something on the short end of the Allen wrench to use as leverage to pry it loose. They're not very tight, so that shouldn't be too bad. And back here, there is that bolt, and it's kind of hard to see, but there is another bolt down over there, and them two are going to hold on the intake manifold along with these 5 bolts in the front. Alright, so there is a bolt that goes through here, a bolt that goes through here. Kind of hard to see, but there's a bolt down there, a bolt that goes in here, a bolt down there, a bolt that goes there, and I just found there's a bolt right there, and it's kind of hard to see because there's a bolt on the other side. I don't know if you can see it down there. That has to come off before the shield can come off. And then I personally cannot get the O2 sensor out without taking the shield out, so I'm going to slide it up over this the best I can, or at least get it up far enough to loosen up that O2 sensor and get it off. Okay, so now we got this heat shield off, and again you can see that there's a bolt here, so there's 4 bolts there. There's one on this side. My camera will focus, and this one over here is actually a smaller one. That one's going to be a 5mm Allen socket, just like the ones for, it's actually the exact same bolt that was used on the intake manifold. Okay, now moving forward, we have access to the exhaust manifold now, and if I don't have to remove this O2 sensor, I'm not going to. So I'm going to try to do this without doing it. I was able to slide the heat shield up over the entire wire and the connector, so that was helpful. Alright, now you can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 nuts up on top that you're going to have to remove, and there is 4 in the identical locations underneath that will also have to be removed. So we're going to hit them with some penetrating oil to get them loosened up. The threads do not look horrible, but still want to avoid breaking anything. So there's that, and I will come back when they are out. Okay, so I have it off now, and I just left the O2 sensor on there. There's no point in taking it off. It works properly. Why change it? Why take it off if it's not necessary? So here is the reason that I had to get this off. Is I have to be able to drill out these holes because somebody had rigged the catalytic converter pipe that attaches here, and to get it off, these bolts were fused. The nuts and bolts were fused to it, so I had to take an air hammer and knock them off. Got them out the best I could. Can't really get in there to drill it out, so next best thing is to take it out. So this is where it came from. Let's see if I can get a good shot in here. And we got the 1, 2, 3, 4 spots that it sits on. You can see some of these studs stayed in, not many of them. Turns out that this is what is holding it in. There's a double threaded stud. Well, it's threaded on both ends, and these nuts did not want to come loose off of there, so it unscrewed out of the block, which is fine. I have a few studs that are left in there, and we're going to be able to use them to reposition the new gasket that I got to get it back on there. Alright, y'all, so it's time for reassembly. We got this part number. This is the exhaust manifold gasket. Looks like this. I would personally advise placing it on the bolts that are either left inside the block, or if you didn't get any bolts that were left in the block, then you got to hold it on with one of the bolts onto the exhaust manifold as you put it on, because you want to make sure that it's aligned and make sure that it goes on properly. You don't want it to seat wrong. You don't want to have to put bolts in, take them back out, and whatnot. Alright, so start doing this and we'll be back. Okay, so we got this all back on, and by the way, sorry if I didn't tell you before, them are 12mm nuts. So gotta get ready to put the shield back on, and the shield has a nut on the bottom, and this fits inside the bottom of the manifold. There's a spout, the exhaust manifold, there's a spout that goes into. There's the spout right there on the bottom of the exhaust manifold that fits into, and that nut is a 27mm. You'll need a 27mm wrench to get it loose and to retighten it after reinstalling the manifold. Okay, so I'm not sure if this is the proper way to do it, but considering I have all this clearance in here, and I had to drill them out, so now I am putting in regular bolts and nuts to hold the flanges together. I decided not to put the shield on until after I attach this. So once I get the catalytic converter pipes on, I plan to get the shield back on. Looks like I'll have enough clearance to get that nut tightened on the bottom, that 27mm nut. So totally up to you whether or not you do your catalytic converter pipe first or after. Well, after a little finagling, I was able to get this on and secured. Don't forget your gasket in between the two. It is now time to reinstall the heat shield. Alright, so we got the heat shield reattached, all but the two bolts, all but this bolt and this bolt, and then we're going to go into the intake manifold. They bolt into the intake manifold. Snake the O2 sensor wire all the way back through this before I put it on, of course, and I reattached it down below. Don't forget, when you're putting it back on, you have this spout down here where this this line that was attached to the heat shield has to come back into that spout, and use that 27mm wrench and thread it back in. Now is on to starting to reconnect some of the hoses and stuff that are connected to the heat shield. Actually, because of the intake having to go back on here, and there's quite the mess I got going on here, I'm probably going to reconnect the intake manifold before putting all the hoses back on, because there's quite a few that came disconnected, so I could move the intake manifold out of the way enough to get the rest on. And when we put the intake manifold back on, remember there are 5mm Allen head bolts that need to go back in. A couple of them are a little bit difficult to get to, but easy enough. And also don't forget the a new gasket here for the intake manifold. When you go to reinstall the bolts on the front of the intake manifold, make sure you put the two back bolts in before you place the intake manifold down, because it'll be hard to get them bolts into them holes after you've already had it placed. Okay, so getting ready to reinstall the intake manifold, and you want to make sure that your mating surface is pretty clean. You don't want any debris in there or anything to mess up your seal. And we got a new gasket here. There's the old gasket. Alright, so I just want to point this out, that when you are reinstalling this intake manifold, you do not want to do them back bolts first. You're going to have to kind of prop this up a little bit to be able to get the hose to line up. And again, make sure your gasket's in there, and start getting these bolts threaded in. And then the two that are on the back are a little bit harder to get to, but they give you this nice little indent right here to be able to get an Allen wrench in, and right here. And you can just put it right in there. Oh. You can just put it right in there, and I don't know if you can see this. You can kind of see where the Allen wrench is. That's where the bolt is. And then again on the other side, back there, you can kind of see it. Okay, right there. And then when you tighten them, just make sure it's in there and use something as leverage. Anything that will fit over the edge of it, just something like that to tighten it. And you don't have to have it real tight. You don't want to strip it out, so best way to do that. Okay, once you have these 5 bolts all nice and tight, like I said, not too tight, you don't want to strip them out. You can move on to these back bolts. There's one, and the other one is back over there. I don't know if you can see that. And them are going to be a 6mm. Just make sure you get them nice and tight before you start hooking anything else up. Alright, now that we got them 2 bolts all tightened up down there, I don't know if you can see that other one nice and tightened up, we're going to start plugging this all back in and get this pop back on. Put the clamp back in place again down here. Put this tube back on, get that clamp in place. Make sure you connect this line, and then that little clamp goes back on there. When we run this over, make sure we clamp it back down onto this tube here, and it runs up above this other line back here. Make sure it runs up above it. Bring this around, and we're going to reconnect this tube up to here. We got to move this clamp over, get that back on, and I got the electrical connector already connected, and I am going to start reinstalling this air hose here, air tube, with the EGR valve in it and everything. Get this all back on, reconnect this to here, reconnect this to here, make sure we get our clamps back on, and I will get my air pump hoses, one from here back to here. That one will have to get back on, and we'll see where we're at right there. And then right, that air pump hose that goes from up here all the way back here is going to slide right into this guy, and then we'll clamp it back down on top of it. Oh, I almost forgot, before we can attach this air tube here, we got to connect this line back up over here. If my camera would focus, it would help out. Get this back up here and put this clamp up here. So before we connect this, I'm going to move this clamp over, move this clamp over here. So we got this air hose down here that we reconnected, and right here, and we put it in this line right here, and then this thing just really simply snaps into place. It snaps into place. Clamp it down on there. Go as many clicks as you can, and then make sure you reattach it up here on the air pump. Make sure you get it to click in. You want to make sure it's sealed, and got this tube back on the valve cover over here, and we're going to connect. We already got this on here. Connect these, or get these clamps over back into place. And this guy on here, and put that clamp back into place. This kind of sits in here. Kind of remove these just to get them out of the way. But we're gonna get these all back into place. Just to make sure everything is back where it goes. Make sure everything kind of clicks. And like I said, I'm going to get these 2 clamps tightened up and get these back in place and get ready to reinstall the air filter box top. Okay, we got this clamp moved back on. We got these reattached right here with the clamp moved over. And got this tube reattached with the clamp, move it over. Got all the air hoses on. Everything's on back there. Got these all back in place. And we're going to, it looks like, yeah, try to make sure you remember every hose that you disconnected. And it looks like I reconnected everything. So now we're just going to take the air filter box top and get it back on here. And remember, these tabs fit in down here into these four little things. I'm going to have to use both hands here and finagle with it a little bit. Once you get it back on and get this back on the end of it, you want to reconnect these two Phillips screws. See if you can see it in there. The sun's really scrolling. There it is. These two Phillips screws connected, and reconnect your air pump hose to the other outlet of the air pump. Alright guys, got it all set back up. Everything is back together and working properly. So hopefully it went okay with you guys. Now it's all done. Like I said, this is my first time doing this. If you guys have any suggestions, any comments, just leave them on the video. I think that's how I get them. Now, I didn't put any torques in there. If there's any torque specifications that you guys need or would like to use, I would just Google it. You can pretty much figure all of it out on Google pretty easily. But thanks for watching, and I hope it helped you guys.